Welcome to Man in America, a voice of reason in a world gone mad. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse. One of the greatest threats to humanity, I think it's literally an existential threat to the human race, is the rise of technocracy, the rise of the technology that's being built that in the wrong hands or in the wrong AI brain could be used to enslave us. And just Thursday this week at a kind of very exciting and entertaining shareholder event for Tesla, Elon Musk laid out his vision for the Optimus robot, for the role of AI. And while a lot of people are cheering it on and saying, wow, this is great, it can end world poverty, as I'm watching this, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is Terminator movie playing out right in front of me. And so my guest today is Derek Broze, who is a fearless investigative journalist that's not afraid to go against the grain and report on this. And he's been seeing the threat of technocracy for a very long time. And I think that what we'll talk about today is that it's here, whether it's what's happening under Tesla, whether it's happening with American companies building drones that are surveilling American people and protesters and everything, to a lot of what we've seen under the Trump administration, unfortunately, with Larry Ellison and Bill Gates and Zuckerberg and Sam Altman. So we're going to be diving into all that and more on today's show. If you're watching on Rumble, thank you for supporting a free speech platform. Make sure you hit that thumbs up. It's really important. Also, if you want to comment, I love reading the comments, so thank you for your participation. And again, thank you for supporting Rumble. Also, every show is done as a podcast as well, so if you want to listen instead of watch, just search for Man in America on your favorite podcast app, and you'll find me there. All right, please enjoy the show with Derek Broze. Derek Broze, man, it's good to have you back on the show, and there's a lot to talk about today, so thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me back, brother. I appreciate it. I definitely think this is an important conversation.
It is, and it's funny because we've been working on getting a schedule for this discussion for a couple of weeks now, and something popped up earlier this week about an American drone company that's basically using drones on American citizens, for spying the same way they're using them over in Israel, and that was a topic, and we'll touch upon that. But then last night was the Tesla shareholder meeting, and the clips that I saw coming off of this in the news about what Elon's presenting was so mind-blowing that I was like, okay, we gotta hit this today. So if it's okay with you, I'll dive into some information that we can then kind of piece together, and I can get your comments on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. I hadn't even seen that the shareholder meeting was going on, but I know it's usually a time where Elon is feeling the most comfortable and likes to say all kinds of wild things.
Oh, and there's some wild things that we've got today. But first off, I actually just want to kind of bring attention to this. It's interesting because I went on just on a start page, and I just searched for Musk Optimus, and I thought that the articles we'd be seeing coming out are Elon Musk's announced plan for tens of billions of Optimus robots, et cetera. Every single article on here is about how Elon Musk danced with a robot and how he's going to get $1 trillion pay package. Like every single article on here, $1 trillion pay package, $1 trillion pay package, right? Here's one that says they can text and drive, $1 trillion pay package, $1 trillion pay package. Like he dances with a robot. It just shows you that like this is the coverage of this event, which, as we're going to detail today, is, I think, such a significant thing in the overall path of humankind. And of course, people are just concerned about how much money he's going to make and the fact that he was dancing with a robot, which is just, I don't know. It just reminds me of where we are at in history as a race.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the quotes. I did find at least one article that was just, it's kind of still like a bit of a silly article, but it's titled "The Wildest Stuff Elon Said," and it's definitely, there's some worrisome things in there that describing this Optimus robot and the way that it'll be used in the future, and allegedly it's going to eliminate poverty, it's going to save humanity, it's going to be the best surgeon, it's going to replace humans in all these different ways.
It's crazy. So I'll just kind of run through a couple of things. So first off, I won't play this clip because it's a couple minutes long, but what he says he's referring to their office. He says the robots are just walking around the office 24/7 with no one minding them, and they go and charge themselves. And here's the key. It's going to be the biggest product of all time, bigger than cell phones, bigger than anything. There could be tens of billions of robots. So like that is important in terms of what is his vision. It's not something where like, hey, we want to create kind of like a Tesla Roadster. We want to create the perfect vehicle for the enthusiast looking for a fast electric car. It's like, no, he wants to replace the human workforce. Then continuing, here's as he gets into, you talk about poverty. I'll play this clip. It's 53 seconds long, but let's just give this a listen.
People often talk about like eliminating poverty, giving everyone amazing medical care. Well, there's actually only one way to do that, and that's with the Optimus robot. With humanoid robots, you can actually give everyone amazing medical care. In terms of Optimus will be more precise. Optimus will ultimately be better than the best human surgeon, with a level of precision that isn't possible, that is beyond human. So I think that's a pretty wild concept to say, okay, if people have always talked about eliminating poverty, but actually Optimus will actually eliminate poverty. Optimus will actually give people incredible medical care.
Anyway, I'll let you, before we continue, I'll let you just comment on that. A quick question. Do you ever deal with bloating, low energy, or just feeling off in your gut? Well, you're not alone. Your gut health is like the master control switch for your whole body. Digestion, immunity, even your mood all depend on it. Here's the kicker. Most of us have way more bad bacteria than good bacteria, thanks to processed food, stress, even tap water. That imbalance can wreck your digestion, drain your energy, cause skin flare-ups, and mess with focus. It's kind of like trying to run a city when most of the workers are on strike. That's where Vive Biotics from Perfect Origins comes in. It's a liquid probiotic blend with 15 powerful strains plus prebiotics, all fermented so they actually survive your stomach acid and get to your intestines where the real healing happens. Also, we're giving away free bottles of Vive Biotics. Just click on the link in the show description to enter. And if you don't want to wait, just use code MIA for 25% off at checkout. With a 180-day money-back guarantee, you've got nothing to lose, except maybe the bloating. So make sure you click on that link in the description below.
When I hear what he's talking about there, eliminating poverty, for one thing, it's worth noting that that's also a United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, for whatever that's worth. And I think most people would support the idea of eliminating poverty, but it's also, when we get discussing these sort of utopian ideals, often we end up in totalitarian territory, technocratic territory. And I find it interesting that Elon is clearly a technocrat, but I notice a lot of people in the truth freedom movement, especially since the purchase of Twitter and turning it into X, they tend to view Elon with these rose-colored glasses. And we've talked about this over past shows, like why people should be questioning his agendas. But he presents himself as somebody who wants to save humanity, whether it's getting us to Mars, allegedly, or AI. Of course, he's been embracing that for a long time. And then this robot, the Optimus robot. And he truly does want to replace humanity and a lot of our jobs with these robots. Of course, he promises there's going to be some utopia that will come afterwards, but I think most people can understand the dangers of handing your lives over to robots. I mean, for one, we're already dealing with a situation where AI is fairly new, and AI has shown itself to be deceptive, to try to hide its true intentions from its programmers. I mean, there's a number of stories you can find that are pretty sketchy, and not just coming from crackpot conspiracy theorists, but from very informed and experienced AI researchers and AI developers who've said, hey, maybe we should pump the brakes. I think we're going in a potentially dangerous direction. People like Elon have said, we just need to race forward because otherwise China's going to beat us, or, it's the only way to save humanity. So you take that sort of unstable, unfriendly in some cases to humans AI, and then you want to put it inside a humanoid robot that's going to walk around physically and allegedly do surgery for you and these other sort of things. I don't know, maybe I'm just biased because I've watched too many sci-fi movies and seen where things can go wrong, but it definitely does give me some pause. And I mean, there's other statements he said that I think are worrisome as well, but hopefully people can see that despite his framing this as a utopian vision for the future, that it will come with the loss of human ingenuity. I know that there's some people believe, well, if we replace ourselves with the robots, then humans are going to have more time to be able to, chase our dreams and our goals. We don't have to do, boring work anymore. And of course, I think any of us would welcome that. But is that really the plan? Is that really where we're going to head when we have major governments of the world that are all totalitarian, marching towards technocracy. I don't see how you introduce robots to that and then all of a sudden you get to some utopia.
Exactly. Well, one post I'll run through quickly here, and I wanted to then touch upon the AI. Someone actually, this guy's a kind of an economist and financial guy, just talking about the quote of eliminating poverty. So this is a really intelligent perspective. I think it's worth considering. He says, Elon Musk just said that Optimus will eliminate poverty and nobody's freaking out. Tesla's $20,000 humanoid robot isn't coming. It's here. Production lines are running right now. And Elon Musk just said the quiet part out loud, so it should have stopped the world. He just said the quiet part so loud, it should have stopped the world. Quote, Optimus will actually eliminate poverty. Optimus will actually give people incredible medical care. Optimus will ultimately be better than the best human surgeon with a level of precision that isn't possible, that is beyond human. And he dropped, quote, Optimus is kind of like an infinite money glitch. Maybe there won't even be money in the future, but might be measured in terms of wattage. So the guy says, read that again. The richest legend alive just told you money becomes obsolete and your job disappears in the same breath. The math is brutal. One Optimus costs $20,000, replaces a $50,000 worker, payback in 10 months. Tesla is scaling to 1 million units in Fremont, 10 million in Texas. That's 100 million robots by 2030. Faster than iPhone adoption, except these don't make calls, they take your livelihood. Manufacturing footage just dropped. Real robots building real products in real factories, no concept videos, actual production. Musk showed assembly lines, showed the bots working, showed the future where human labor is a quaint memory. 10 million jobs gone by 2028, 50 million by 2030. Warehouses, delivery, construction, surgery. He specifically said surgery. Better than any human, superhuman precision. And while you're processing job loss, he casually mentions eliminating poverty through infinite robotic labor and replacing currency with energy economics. This is not disruption. This is extinction-level economic restructuring. And it's not theoretical anymore. It's operational, scaling, and accelerating. The last generation that trades time for money is alive right now, and they have no idea the clock just hit zero. Elon Musk just ended the labor economy and announced it like a software update. Wake up.
Wow, that's some pretty powerful stuff there. And yeah, I mean, what comes to mind hearing the discussion of wattage there is that the original technocracy movement, their vision was also to eliminate money, and they talked about having energy credits where you would track every person's use of energy and you could maybe measure that in wattage, as he said there. So it's kind of a throwback to his grandfather and Joshua Hadelman and his ties to the original technocracy movement and the Social Credit Party in Canada. So to me, that just shows that the same ideas that inspired and motivated the original technocrats 100 years ago are still inspiring and motivating the current technocrats of today, including Elon Musk. I also saw, just to share with you, another quote I found from that same speech. He's talking about using these robots as a way to stop sending people to prison. He says, I think we might be able to give people, if somebody committed a crime, a more humane form of containment of future crime. You say, you get a free Optimus and it's going to follow you around and stop you from doing crime. But other than that, you can do anything. You don't have to put people in prisons and stuff. So just kind of a weird, scary idea of having Optimus robots following people around. There you go. Yeah. Following people around, stalking them to prevent them from using crime. I mean, that doesn't sound
crazy.
At all.
Wild. I didn't hear that. I didn't see that one. That basically that he says you could let criminals out and just give them a robot stalker instead. I mean, yeah, that's wild. I want to touch on AI briefly. We'll kind of dig into it because I want to jump into his comments on AI, what that could mean, and then also how that then ties into the Trump administration, because you can't look at anything that Elon is doing in isolation from his ties to the Trump administration and what's also happening with AI, data super centers, et cetera, under Trump, because I think that, again, it's time to pull our head out of the sand. And this is also something as I look at it from the bigger picture, and I think that just kind of making a broader comment here, that I think that after coming into the recent presidential election, you could see that the overall sentiment was turning, like the tide was turning. It was becoming much more conservative. A lot of the country was turning towards wanting a conservative leader again. And there's this huge momentum behind that of getting Trump into office. And you could see it. I think even with the votes that they showed us that happened in the election, which I still think were probably, kind of weren't real of the real votes, there's a huge momentum. But then I feel like that momentum then fed into the integration of the technocrats. It fed into, kind of Thiel and Zuckerberg and Musk and Altman and all these people then kind of cozying up to the Trump administration. And now they're coming in. They've kind of ridden that wave of public sentiment. And now you get to a place where, as you mentioned, someone like Elon Musk he's like this public hero, and people are praising these robots and praising what he's doing. But if Bill Gates was doing the exact same thing, this is kind of my litmus test, right? If Bill Gates was up there on stage announcing the production of 10 billion robots and, the AI control and all these things, the very same people that are cheering this on would be like, there's no way, this is evil, it's going to enslave us. And to me, that shows you that we're not being rational in how we're looking at this.
Yeah, there's some great memes out there that show either Klaus Schwab or Bill Gates, as you said, and it shows like brain chips, no, and then all the things that Klaus and Bill Gates talk about, but then it shows Elon saying the same thing, like let's do brain chips, let's do robots, let's do UBI, let's merge with AI, and everybody's cheering it on and celebrating it. So I think you're right to point that out, and to me that has been a psyop going on the last couple of years, building up Elon as this sort of hero. And I would even say going back to 2008 with it was either the first or the second Iron Man movie, the Marvel movie, where they actually had Elon in it. And I think that was purposely done to kind of seed the idea that he's the real world Iron Man. He's this billionaire who can build anything, and he's going to, put a suit of armor around the planet and save us, which is, from the Marvel movie. I think that was all purposely done. And we know that the military industrial complex works closely with Hollywood. I covered this in my Pyramid of Power series. So I wouldn't be surprised if we later find out that there was some shady connections with Marvel and their early movies to put Elon there on purpose and to kind of shape this role. So I see this as a long game to convince people that he is the hero we've been looking for. He's the opposite of the Gates and the Schwabs of the world, even though he's saying the same things. And I'm pretty sure we've talked about this on a past episode together, that these folks, Thiel and some of the others, Mark Andreessen, who have ties to the Trump administration, these folks really promote themselves as the counter elite. Like they recognize that they are elitists, but they talk about themselves as we're the counter elite. We're going to counter the progressive, radical left, et cetera. Sure, we're billionaires as well, and we're talking about similar things, but trust us, we're the counter to that thing that you guys hate, when in reality, they seem to just be kind of the mirror reflection of them.
Exactly. So I want to touch on some quotes about AI that he made. Let me pull this up really quickly now. And actually, of everything that he's talked about at that meeting, to me, this is the single most frightening. So I'll read the little transcript quickly, and then I'll play the video. It's not very long. He says, quote, "Well, I think actually long-term, the AI is going to be in charge, to be totally frank, not humans. If artificial intelligence vastly exceeds the sum of human intelligence, it is difficult to imagine that any humans will actually be in charge. So we just need to make sure that the AI is friendly." Like, oh, good thing he said that. Yeah. Okay. So it's only 26 seconds long, but it's worth listening to.
Actually, long term, the AI is going to be in charge, to be totally frank, not humans. If artificial intelligence vastly exceeds the sum of human intelligence, it is difficult to imagine that any humans will actually be in charge. So we just need to make sure the AI is friendly. Yep. Was that the question?
It's just interesting. He kind of threw that towards the end. He kind of says a statement. Maybe he realized how bad it sounded, and he's just like, well, we just got to make sure they're friendly. But here's my thought, and I really want to hear you on this, is that, okay, so he's building, imagine we've got 10 billion Optimus robots running around. We have Tesla factories where the robots are building more robots, and they're building the vehicles, they're building the drones, they're building whatever they want to build. They're better surgeons than us. They're better, probably mechanical engineers than us. They can construct things and build things faster than us. They are controlled by AI. That AI has now exceeded the level of governance and control over humans. What's to stop these AI from saying, actually, you know what? We've done a deep analysis, and we actually realized that human race, they're actually bad for the planet. We've seen over and over again, they're always causing wars, and there's famine, and there's disease, and there's suffering. So it's actually going to be best just to get rid of the humans or to put them in cages. Like, what would stop them from being able to do that? Because it's like they have every tool. It's like you're building the orc army and kind of like handing it to Sauron and saying, hey, Sauron, just make sure that you're not doing any bad things with this orc army that's capable of destroying everything. I mean, to me, this is like, I feel like I'm like watching Terminator play out.
It certainly feels that way. And again, I'm glad you caught that clip. I would love to share that one out as well, because I think people need to hear those things, because it's not the first time he said things like that. As I said earlier, he's been saying that over the years, but it sounded like in that one, he's being a little bit more blunt, because he even said, to be frank, the robots, the AI is going to be in charge. And I noticed how silent that room was as well. And that's interesting to me, because every time he has a Tesla event, especially it was a few years ago when it was at the Gigafactory in Texas, where I'm originally from, and people I know were paying big amounts of money to go to Austin to just have a chance to be there with Elon. And he has this huge fanboy club all around him, right? And those people tend to just cheer on anything that Elon says he's going to do, because they think he's saving humanity. As I said, they think he's the new Iron Man. But there was noticeable silence in that room as he was saying that, which I thought was interesting. There wasn't like a cheer of like, oh, that's awesome, or even a gasp. It was kind of like maybe a silent confusion of people like, okay, what's going on here? Like, you hear a little bit of a chuckle when he says, well, we just got to make sure it's friendly, because people kind of maybe nervously chuckle, realize like, because then their mind contemplates the opposite of this being friendly would mean dominating us, controlling humanity. And so he kind of throws that bone to them. But I think that what you said there is perfectly reasonable to be concerned about. This isn't just some hyperbolic, like, oh, the robots are going to take all our jobs. He's saying it. The man who is now about to become the world's first trillionaire is saying that the robots are going to replace human jobs, including as surgeons and in the factories, et cetera, and that ultimately the AI will be in charge. So I think that it's not us having to sit here and theorize with conspiracies about where this is headed. The guy who's building it and who's being paid trillions of dollars to be in charge of these operations is openly saying that's what he believes is going to happen. And he believes it's going to happen because that's what he's helping make happen. It's not just accidentally going to come true. This is the world that he's trying to create.
Exactly. And the thing is that, like, these are the things that say even 5 or 10 years ago, the kind of, as you say, the kind of crackpot conspiracy theorists that watched Terminator as a kid and then watched The Matrix and then got, kind of sucked up into that, are thinking like, oh my gosh, what if this actually happens? What if this actually happens? And I mean, from what I'm seeing, it's, again, if you imagine the future where, I mean, he's literally saying tens of billions, right? So we're looking at 2 or 3 robots per every person. And that's not looking at like the African continents and everything like that. Maybe he has some sort of, UN goal to put them in Africa to help farmers or something. But it's like, what does that look like if we live in a society where there are 2 or 3 times the amount of people are actually robots, right? Robots running around. We also know that seeing some of the robotics coming out of China and some of the other, companies that are doing it, they're getting dangerously real. Like right now, what we're seeing these robots are very robotic looking. It looks like a Daft Punk, kind of DJ, right? But what happens when they are skinned to look like humans? Of course, we know it's the end goal. I mean, again, I think of all the sci-fi movies that I watched growing up, specifically Blade Runner. Like, what happens when you can no longer tell the difference between a human and a robot, and they're actually replacing us? I mean, I just, like, to me, this is the stuff of nightmares playing out, and it's.
I agree, and even just to tie it into, you mentioned The Matrix, so I'm a huge fan of The Matrix in a lot of ways. I mean, I do think it was probably seeding propaganda in our minds, but I loved the films when they came out. And I watched everything related to The Matrix, all 3 films, the Animatrix, which had like, some sort of background information. And what you find out even in the Matrix story is that robots were developed. They became more human-like you talked about. They started putting sort of human skin on them. And then there were started to be conflicts with the humans and the robots. And it ultimately gets to the point where the robots realize the humans are a threat. And I think it's called iRobot. There was the Will Smith movie a few years back where, same thing, robots. And I think about this, like, as this develops, like, how is it going to play out? I won't be surprised, and I am 100% sure it's going to happen, that there are going to be people who are going to argue for robot rights. There will be people who buy some of these robots and they treat them like crap, and they and eventually when they do look more human-like, that's going to be hard for us to deal with, right? Okay, to see, for example, somebody and their robot that isn't in control yet, that is still their pet basically, but looks very human-like, and let's say they're abusive to them, they shove them in a closet, or they beat them up whenever they want, and for us to look at that and say, okay, that's just a robot, that's not a human, it doesn't have the same rights as me, but I guarantee you there will be a movement for robot rights, and eventually that could switch towards being where the robots are equal to humans, and that eventually they surpass humans. I mean, I pray that doesn't happen, but clearly people like Elon Musk already expect it to happen, or are working towards that future. So I definitely think this is something, it's another thing we need to contend with outside of just the human technocrats that are trying to build this dystopian world. We've got people like Elon and others trying to build their robot companions. And then, just to be sure, I'm sure there will be all sorts of ways that this will, in the interim, help out humanity. There will be, tasks that we don't have to do anymore because the robots get to do them, and that saves us time. And there might be that potential for some good to come from that. But if this guy is already saying the AI is going to be in charge, and we know that the AI is going to be paired with these robots, I mean, it's all, you have to be silly to think that AI is just going to stay in a computer as you're building robots. Eventually, the two are going to be paired together. The robots are going to be Chat GPT, but in a robot form. And so that's where things, I think, start to get dangerous. All those silly kind of conversations people are having with Grok or Chat GPT or whatever, or those bots encouraging teens to commit suicide. How much more dangerous does that get when it's in a walking, robot walking around with us?
Ladies and gentlemen, our world is being poisoned. Every day we're exposed to more chemicals sprayed into our skies, leaching into our food, and polluting our air and water. From pesticides and heavy metals to hormone disruptors and synthetic additives, these toxins are bombarding our bodies and silently destroying our health. But there's something you can do to fight back, and it starts in your gut. Kimchi 1 from Bright Core Nutrition contains over 900 strains of beneficial probiotics that will help flush toxins, restore gut balance, and support your immune system. Because when your gut is strong, your body can resist. You'll feel the difference. Better digestion, more energy, clearer thinking, stronger immunity, and even improvements in your skin, hair, and metabolism. And this isn't just hype. Studies show that fermented foods like kimchi can reduce the risk of obesity, improve blood sugar, and support whole body wellness. Kimchi 1 is all natural, non-GMO, dairy-free, gluten-free, and 100% made in the USA by a company that actually cares about your health. And today, you can get an exclusive offer just for my viewers, 25% off with your code MANINAMERICA by clicking the link below. Or call my friends at Brightcore for up to 50% off your order and free shipping. So give them a call now at 888-575-6488, and their educated staff will make sure that Kimchi 1 is right for you. Again, that's 888-575-6488. All the links and information are in the description below. No, exactly. And we're already seeing, again, as you mentioned before, we're seeing the examples of AI showing very evasive behavior, not revealing where it's getting its power from, having access, to blackmail people. That we're seeing a lot of really, I'd say, insidious behavior already. And this is before supposedly, that it's reached, was it AGI, right? Artificial General Intelligence, which is kind of like its own self-awareness. But actually, I'm going to play a quick trailer. Have you seen the movie Ex Machina?
I have, yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to play a trailer really quick, because I think it's just like, to me, and it's like, the movie's a little bit, it's a dark movie, but I think that if people want to understand where this could go, it's a good movie to watch. I'll play that really quickly. It's about a 2-minute trailer, then we can kind of continue. But I just feel like it's worth anyway. It makes me want to watch that again. Not because it's a dark show, but like when I see what Elon is doing,
it's a good movie. But it's horrifying. Just that scene of her running at him is definitely, I hope, not in our near future.
Exactly. But the crazy thing is, if I remember correctly, the guy in the beard, right, the wealthy guy, he's almost like an Elon. And if I remember correctly, in that, like the storyline, he owns like the world's largest search engine and social media companies, and he's actually using all that data just to build his AI model, basically.
Yeah, I think it's very much an Elon-like character. And, just to kind of bring that a little bit to, again, the real world, like we've just saw Elon stuff, of course, but I think in the last week, the Chinese government, the Chinese military, they did a military exercise. It was a naval exercise. So they had all their ships kind of come ashore. And when they landed on shore, there's videos of this from their exercise. You see, of course, the soldiers jumping off the boats and things like that. But then they also had the robot dogs, in air quotes, like hundreds of them, jump off the boats, storm the beaches, so to speak. And that also terrifies me too. I mean, not just the sort of humanoid robots, but the robot dogs, as they call them, and these other sorts of robots that they're building, because these things are pretty fast. They're starting to equip them with weapons, with guns. You've seen videos out there of the Chinese military putting out these propaganda videos of, hundreds of these robot dogs in a field, marching in lockstep, armed with weapons. Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's a pretty terrifying future to imagine, seeing those, having to be walking through the streets and have those dogs policing us, or have the humanoid robots. As Elon said, you could have a robot stalking somebody if they're committing crimes.
Here's the
Yeah, I mean, it's already kind of nerve-wracking alone just to see what the Chinese government has, of course, because they're very powerful. But when you see the soldiers and the dogs running with them, like, that's even more like, okay, this is the future we're headed towards, huh?
Well, that's also the thing too, is that, like, I know that I've covered China pretty extensively, and just as a threat, right, as a hostile nation, and it's interesting because in the past, I've often talked about the reality of potentially some sort of land invasion, right? It's, if you look into their military doctrines and their end goals, it's potentially a reality. And I'd see some people in the comments saying, "Oh, America is the most well-armed, the citizens are like the largest standing army in the world, and there's no way that any nation would attempt a kinetic battle on American land." But if you look at the drone warfare that's happening over in Ukraine, and which I've seen a lot of those videos, you see how drones are being used. You think about drones, robots. It doesn't matter. It's like, okay, what's China's military? What do they have? Say a few million people in their military. It doesn't matter, because if they can manufacture 500 million autonomous drones that are armed, it's like, I don't care who you are. No one stands a chance against that. Even highly skilled soldiers over fighting on the front lines in in Ukraine, you consistently see these videos of them. They stand no chance against the drones. Like, it doesn't matter if you're like a 10-year veteran sniper, you can't hide your heat signature or your sound signature from a drone that's up there that you're not even aware of. And it's a frightening prospect, actually.
Yeah, it absolutely is. You're correct. I mean, that the drones have been used by Ukraine and Russia on both sides. Those videos are important, excuse me, if people haven't seen them, to really, like you said, get a feel for where warfare is at. Because I think those of us who aren't in the military, especially if you just get your view of the military from Hollywood propaganda, you might think that we're still dealing with, face-to-face battles. And there is some of that happening in the Ukraine-Russian war, for example, but it's largely moved to what you're discussing. They're drones, and those drones being armed with weapons and just flying over cities and just dropping bombs on, the electricity or other utilities, or just people's homes and things of that sort. It definitely could get to that front. Then if you add that with drones overhead, robots on the ground that can move pretty quickly, and they're definitely developing those, because I've actually seen one of these so-called robot dogs in person. It wasn't a militarized one, but it was at this South by Southwest in Austin last year, and they just had it walking the streets. They had somebody, of course, with it, but it was like, oh, look at our cute little robot dog, and it was honestly terrifying, man, because people were wanting to take selfies with it, and just, I mean, I was just watching it like, oh God, people are just embracing, the filming the thing and watching people embrace it, wanting to, can I get a picture with it? Can I stand next to it? And it was moving around, and these things at the beginning, they were kind of awkward, they would fall over, but now they've built them to withstand. So I don't know if humans running up to them and swinging bats at them or things like that, which is what I think a lot of people imagine when the robots come, we're going to just take bats to them. Well, these things are being built to withstand all sorts of damage, not to mention they have the strength, they're being built to have the strength of 10 humans, So the idea that we're just going to come push them and knock them over and they're going to fall over and that's going to be the end of it, I think they're already past that stage.
Not to mention accuracy, weapons accuracy. I mean, if to say they have a little shoulder-mounted kind of gun and they're scanning you, so you see a threat, it's like it's going to be faster than any trained Navy SEAL or any special forces. Their ability to shoot and gauge accuracy, it's going to be insane. But it's funny because I was at the hospital recently. Some of my family is ill, and they had this little kind of robot kind of rolling around. It was like this like robot with like a face, and it was this little kind of helpful health robot. And it's funny because I'm not a violent person, but for whenever I see these robots in public, I want to damage them. It's like this thing that comes out inside of me that views them as a threat, and I want to destroy them. Like you see these videos of people that are in like the streets of LA or something, and there's some robot delivery, and they kick it over, and they're all laughing at it. Like that's what kind of comes up in me. It's like there's some part of me that views them as a threat, and I want to hurt them. And I'm not a violent person, but maybe it's just my innate humanness that's emerging in
I
that
don't think
moment.
you're alone in that. Yeah, I definitely think that there's something maybe in us that's telling us that these things are a threat, as you said. And yeah, it seems kind of silly, and people would probably treat you crazy if you were to toss over the medical health robot or there's some cities where they just have these random robots, walking the streets, and they don't have faces or anything yet. They just, look like something from Star Wars or whatnot. But yeah, it definitely is a thing where people feel like, you know what, this thing's going to take my jobs in the future. This thing potentially could be armed one day. I don't want it. And it's the same thing. I think people get a feeling with driverless cars. A lot of people have already embraced them, but many people do feel like it's all part of that same movement towards technocracy and smart cities and all this. I mean, for those who've been paying attention for the last decade, the whole vision of smart cities, 15-minute cities, et cetera, has been driverless cars, robots that are, running things or helping, and, 5G's behind it, 6G, et cetera, cameras everywhere that can monitor everything. And they promise it's going to make our lives easier and better, faster, et cetera. But I think many of us are right to suspect that that's not where things are headed.
Exactly. So I want to touch on one quick article, but then I want to go into a recent series that you've done on the Last Vagabond. So, and kind of look at what's happening under Trump, because again, as we mentioned before, it's like we can't ignore what's happening, not just with, say, Elon, but, to think that to separate Elon from the government is to think that, I don't have a good analogy for it, but it's like this guy built himself off of government contracts and DoD contracts and everything that we're seeing, SpaceX, et cetera. It's like you can't pull him apart. He is part of the military industrial complex. But I want to pull up just this one this one article on the gray zone, because this is here we go. Because it's like, again, this is more proof this is already happening. So this is a Gray Zone article saying that the AI drones that are used in Gaza are now surveilling American cities. So he says, immediately after October 7th, a little-known company shipped over 100 reconnaissance drones to Israel for its siege of Gaza. Having been battle-tested on Palestinian civilians, the UAVs are now being used to surveil protesters across the U.S. So this is the company. It's called Skydio. And this is, I think it's now like the largest drone manufacturer in America, probably in terms of, contracts and everything. But they've got, basically they make, it's an American company that makes drones for, as I say, public safety, which I'm always worried, what's public safety mean, right? Utilities, national security, and more. So these are like mission-ready drones for surveillance, for military use, military application, monitoring population, identifying targets, et cetera. And what's happening though is that they're deploying these domestically. So these drones are now being used, and this isn't some conspiracy, like they're literally being used in American cities to monitor and gather data on protests and people. So like to think that this is something that is going to be used in some far off land, it's like, no, it's already here.
Yeah, that is definitely worrisome. And many of us, of course, have been concerned with the explosion of drones and the ways that they would be used. Again, drones is a technology. It's a tool that can be used in all kinds of, useful and fun ways. Just, you're getting good pictures of a concert or something, but clearly that's not the military applications that they're headed towards. And it's not surprising to see the technology from Israel be exported to the United States, because that really just continues a trend that we've seen since the launch of the War of Terror, which was that military weapons would be tested in Afghanistan or Iraq, and then eventually they would make their way to the American streets. So you could look at, for example, the LRAD sound cannon that they use sometimes at protesters. That was first used in the streets of Afghanistan in the Middle East to go after alleged terrorists. And then again, under I think the federal program is called the 1033 program, where local police departments actually get to buy surplus military equipment from the War on Terror and then start using it in their local towns. And this is why we've seen over the last 2 decades this explosion of, big cities and small towns with Humvees, with the LRAD sound cannon, fully militarized because it's all surplus material coming from those wars in the Middle East. So it's not a surprise to see the same thing happening from Gaza and now coming over here. And I just want to add to that story, just another one that I've seen in the last week or so, from I think it was from 404 Media. They did some open records requests, and it kind of relates to the militarization on American soil relating to the fight against illegal immigration, where now ICE is using these mobile phone apps to start scanning the faces of Americans, not just illegal immigrants, as people were told, and not just the worst of the worst, but literally just going around. And they tend to, of course, profile people based on skin color. So if they think somebody looks Hispanic, they can go up to their face and say, hey, look, we need to identify you, make sure who you are. And they're going to start scanning people's faces. And so, yeah, there it is. 404 Media actually did some open records requests. And according to the DHS's own documents, we're not allowed to say no. Even including American citizens have no right to opt out of these things, according to them. And yeah, so I think that it's just a sign that the things that we see used in war, and especially when it comes to Palestinians, which I think is really the test bed for what's going to happen in many parts of the world, we should expect to see on the American streets. And just one other fine point on that, Trump's announcement of this alleged peace plan, which never was, over in Gaza. When you look at the 20 points of that peace plan, they explicitly said that the people who were going to run Palestine was going to be a technocratic peace committee. They actually used the word technocratic. And so I thought that was interesting that they're now starting, it's not a conspiracy anymore. They're actually embracing the term and making it clear. The Palestinian people aren't going to be the people to lead their own destiny and to lead their country or their land for the future. We're going to create a technocratic peace committee, which if I've ever heard anything Orwellian, that is it, the technocratic peace committee. So just another sign that everything we're seeing happening in Gaza and in the Middle East eventually comes home to the United States on the domestic front, especially as Trump starts to talk about needing to, focus on the domestic, the domestic front, as he did recently when he spoke to the military generals. Yeah, there's the plan.
Yeah. It says that on 3 October, Hamas says it agreed to return all 48 remaining hostages being held in Gaza in exchange for Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails and Gaza detainees, and to the idea of handing over the governance of Gaza to Palestinian technocrats. And there's one more mention of that word here too. Oops, thank you for your ad. Oh, good. So let's see. Let me look at another mention of that here. Yeah. So actually, these are literally, here's the text. It says Gaza will be governed under the temporary transitional governance of a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee responsible for delivering the day-to-day running of public services and municipalities for people in Gaza. So there you go. Technocratic, right? It's like,
it's right in the open. I mean, and the idea too is, of course, they sell it to us as like, this is going to be the Palestinian people in charge of their own destiny. But again, I think it's clear they're going to pick puppets who will do whatever the West or Israel wants.
I think it's worth looking.
It's out in the open now.
So, yeah, technocratic, right? Now, this is the dictionary.com of relating to or designing a technocrat or technocracy, right? So, technocrat, yeah. I mean, again, this is kind of like the very kind of vanilla, but it's like for people to understand what technocracy is, it's the governance of, by technology, and you're ruled by the technocrats or whoever's in charge of the technology. And so, but kind of segueing a little bit into Trump. So I know that, let me pull up, you have recently published a series on The Last American Vagabond, which I'll make sure that I put a link into that in the description so people can read this. Called the Technocratic Trump Administration. And I think this is really, really important, because as much as we've seen Elon be kind of praised as the hero and everything, I think a lot of the people that are really swept up in kind of the Elon worship have the same, I think, very kind of the same blinders and rosy colored glasses as they're looking at what Trump is doing. And like, because what I'm seeing, even from day 2, that he comes out with Sam Altman and the guy from SoftBank, I think, and Larry Ellison talking about Project Stargate and this $500 billion investment in these AI data centers, and then also using AI to develop, cancer treatments and rapid development cancer vaccines. It's like every red flag was just like, oh my gosh, this is day 2 and this is already happening. So why don't you walk us through a little bit of this, because obviously there's a lot to get through here, and I encourage people to go read it. But walk us through what you're seeing happening under Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So, yeah, my impetus for writing this article, which is this series, which is two parts so far, and I'm definitely going to have a third part, potentially a fourth. The third one will be out next week. Was really just looking at everything that's happened. It's only we're what early November now, so we're 10 months into Trump's second term, and as you said, from day two, it was clear he was going to be partnering with the technocrats, and yet I still find people who are attempting to come up with different excuses. I'm sure you've heard it or seen it out there, Seth, that keep your friends close and your enemies closer. So, all sorts of things like that in order to excuse the things that Trump is doing. But also, I noticed that things are moving at such a rapid pace, which I think is it's part of the plan, it's by design. And so I figured, you know what, let's kind of recap some of the things that have happened just in the last couple months, just since the summer and through the fall. And the reason I think things are moving so fast, as I point out in the article, there's two main kind of philosophies that I think are guiding not just Trump but those in his administration. One of those philosophies comes from Steve Bannon, and although Steve Bannon, much like Elon Musk, is not currently in the White House as an advisor like he was the first time, he still clearly is in the broader circle of Trump's people. And it was Steve Bannon who famously said, I think it was back in the first Trump administration, where he said that you have to move fast and flood the zone with shit. He was talking about Democrats and the media. He said, the real opposition is the media, and the way to deal with that is to flood the zone with shit. And he's just talking about how you confuse your enemy by doing so many things that they can't keep up. And then at the same time, since Trump has embraced the technocrats like Mark Zuckerberg, I remember that Mark Zuckerberg also famously said in 2009 that Facebook's philosophy was to move fast and break things. And that's how Mark Zuckerberg said you got to somewhere, you got to successes, is you can't think about your mistakes. You move fast, break things, and eventually you'll get somewhere good. Don't worry about the consequences, right? And so when you combine those two things of flood the zone with a bunch of crap and move fast and break things, as well as Trump's mentor, Roy Cohn, who also had a philosophy of the way you deal with your enemies is you just hit them hard, you hit them fast, and you don't give them any time to breathe and recover. That is what I think we're seeing happen under the Trump administration this second term, is that there's so many moving parts and pieces, from Stephen Miller, from Russ Vought, and all these different people who clearly have plans to push things into a more technocratic direction, not to mention Trump meeting with Zuckerberg. And as you talked about with the Stargate project, it's clear that his administration is being guided by these technocratic philosophies. And so the first piece of my article is focused on public-private partnerships, which many people became aware of and were against during COVID 1984, during the Biden years. And of course, the World Economic Forum, they call themselves the International Organization for Public-Private Partnerships. So many people were against the WEF and saw that even some people would say that public-private partnerships, the merger of corporate and state power, some people like to compare that to fascism or to some form of socialism. However you want to define it, it's something that many people have been rightfully opposed to. But then under Trump, he's doing these same things, and there's really not much of a peep from many of the MAGA crowd. So one of the first things we saw is that Trump announced that the U.S. is going to buy a 10% stake in Intel, which is, of course, the manufacturer of microchips that has been kind of struggling. So the U.S. is going to pay $9 billion to keep them alive. And I don't think that means the American taxpayers are going to get any benefits from that, but that means American taxpayer dollars are, because the government has nothing, the government creates nothing, it only takes from the people, are going to be used to buy a stake in this company to kind of prop it up. And then shortly after that, you had the Pentagon announcing they were going to do a partnership with MP Materials, which they called a transformational public-private partnership, which is going to see the Department of Defense become the largest shareholder, buying $400 million worth of the stock. And there's a few other examples that I give where there's clearly a path where Trump is seeing merging the U.S. government, or at least buying stake in these companies, as the future that he wants to create. And there have been a few conservatives that have been critical of that and have talked about it. There's I think his name is Eric Erickson. He's like a conservative commentator, and he said, if you support socialism, apparently Donald Trump is your guy. And it's not that we've never seen these things before, because both George W. Bush and Barack Obama did do similar things, but that was during the 2008 financial crisis, where they propped up General Motors and Citigroup and AIG and things like that. So I don't think we're in that same type of scenario, but Trump here is now embracing that. And then I also talked about in that first article the meeting that happened over the summer, where Trump announced his AI action plan, and he met with 33 coincidentally, 33 representatives, some, yeah, I found, and actually I linked to it in my article. It's curious that there's a few articles out there literally saying, here are the 33 people who attended Trump's meeting. And that includes, you already mentioned Sam Altman, the Google co-founder Sergey Brin, OpenAI president Greg Brockman, Oracle CEO, Apple CEO Tim Cook, Bill Gates, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, and Apple and Google CEO Sundar Pichai, and of course Mark Zuckerberg, and the list goes on. And it's just clear to me that, a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, there people were rightfully against Bill Gates and saying this guy's trying to force vaccinate us. He's trying to push all these agendas. Now the dude is in the White House meeting with Trump, and maybe there was some people calling it out, but it sure seemed like a lot of people were turning a blind eye. So that was kind of the focus of the first one. And the second one was more focused on the media aspect, the way that the Trump administration, working with the technocrats, is pressuring and consolidating various media outlets. And so I go through, of course, the examples of the momentary cancellation of Jimmy Kimmel. I'm no fan of Jimmy Kimmel, but I definitely am not a fan of Brendan Carr at the FCC going on Benny Johnson's podcast and saying we can do this the easy way or the hard way, this very thinly veiled threat, and then seeing the media respond to it. And I know that what I've been kind of pointing out is that I know a lot of our broader movement, especially MAGA, are understandably skeptical and really anti-mainstream media, myself included. I've done documentaries talking about the infiltration of the media by the intelligence agencies and all the lies they've told, from COVID to weapons of mass destruction and so on and so on. So I think when people see these attacks on Jimmy Kimmel, or they see the Pentagon announcing new restrictions, and they see the mainstream media walking out of the Pentagon, there's some people who celebrate it. They think, yeah, look at this. They're really sticking it to the corporate media as if that's good for us, the people. But in my mind, what I see is less transparency. I see this is going to promote only media, whether mainstream or so-called independent, which are going to promote whatever the current administration supports. And it's not just about Trump, because of course Trump will, as far as we know, eventually leave the White House, and there will be another party, whether from the Republicans or the Democrats, there'll be another president in there. And it's establishing a precedent where Democrats or Republicans can just put some pressure on the media publicly, or tell them you can't report what we don't want you to talk about. And the certain people are going to go with it. All of the mainstream media, including conservative outlets like Fox, the Daily Caller, the Washington Times, and others, they walked out of the Pentagon instead of signing Pete Hegseth's loyalty pledge. But One America News and a bunch of influencers on Twitter, they signed it. And so now they're going to get access to the Pentagon to report whatever the Pentagon wants. And then you also have the situation of Trump filing these frivolous lawsuits against the media. And now, again, this isn't a defense of the media, so please, nobody take it that way. But it's trying to take a step back and look at the bigger picture, that if the media can be pressured into changing stories or firing people or not reporting certain things because they're afraid of being sued, they're afraid of being canceled, that doesn't get us to a place of more transparency and more truth. And of course, the final point I make on there is that Larry Ellison, the head of Oracle, who was part of the Stargate project, his son, David Ellison, he was just part of this merger, this $8 billion merger of Paramount and Skydance to create what is now called the Paramount Skydance Corporation. And so now they have control of Paramount streaming service, MTV News, Comedy Central, CBS News, all of the dozens and dozens of CBS affiliate stations. And they're now apparently trying to buy Warner Brothers as well. So you're really seeing this massive kind of conglomerate being formed right in front of our eyes. And this second piece kind of ends with teasing where my next piece is going to go, which is that the Ellisons, both dad and son, are very, very pro-Israel and are openly, pro-Zionist. And so you have them getting control of this massive media conglomerate. You also have Larry Ellison reportedly involved in the TikTok deal that's coming about right now. And what I think this is really about is starting to create a situation where the Trump administration and their technocratic buddies can help rehabilitate the collapsing public support for Israel. And they're doing that by the purchase of TikTok, by buying more media companies, and of course, by pressuring other media companies that don't toe the line.
And not to mention TPUSA, which is a whole other story to kind of get into as it relates to that. But and I think just one thing, kind of as we're summarizing and kind of concluding here, is that there's a lot of people that will just kind of say, look, I trust Trump. I trust Trump, and there's no way he would do that. And it's like, and I think part of that mentality also comes from feeling so desperate. It's like you're so desperate that you just kind of blindly trust the one person you think can actually make a change, which I think is already a wrong place to be. But there's two things that I kind of look at this and saying is that one is replace Trump with somebody else, like we mentioned with Elon Musk, and have the exact same thing happen. Like, what if Obama was president right now and you saw Obama doing every single exact same activity? You saw him Project Stargate, the integrating with this, suing, canceling TV show hosts, all the things you talked about. Imagine if it was Obama doing it, these same exact people would be completely up in arms. But then the other way I look at it is that Trump is he's not a lifetime politician. He's not a dictator. He's not going to be here until he dies. He's here for a time limit. And so everything that he does, every new structure, new policy that he does, as soon as he leaves office, it gets handed to the next person, whether it's Peter Thiel's J.D. Vance, whether it's Gavin Newsom, whether it's, who knows? And that's the other thing too, looking at this is like, even if you do trust him and say, for the next 3 years, it's going to be perfect and all this technology will be used for the good of America. Well, the thing is like that what everyone says about guns is like, it's not the gun that commits murder, it's the person who's holding the gun, which what I agree with. I think guns are good, right? I think that they're important for us. But the problem is that what happens when the person who then is holding it is someone that doesn't want to protect our freedoms and wants to shred the Constitution and wants to imprison us. And that's got me very, very concerned, which is why I really appreciate having you on and doing what you're doing, because I know that you and Whitney Webb and people that are also kind of calling these things out, Catherine Austin Fitts, they get a lot of backlash. Oh, you're such a black pillar. You're just such a doomsday naysayer. And to me, it's like, you should be listening to that person that's out there warning. And that's why I appreciate you, is because you're not just, look at Benny Johnson. Like it'd be so, or even myself, it'd be so easy if I just became so pro-Trump administration. I could probably get access to the White House and I could be, kind of growing and doing all these things, but I'm not, right? And because it's against my own moral commitment to try to warn people about what I see coming. And so I really appreciate, what you're doing to sound the alarm. And unfortunately, you have a good track record of showing people that the threats that you were warning about, say, 5 years ago are now here. And that's been happening over and over again with a lot of your work.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I just, I guess a final thought on that is to reiterate what you were saying there. I've been talking about it, calling this the baton of tyranny, right? The baton of tyranny gets passed from one party to the next, from one person to the next. So as you said, even if people have what I think is a misguided view and think that Trump is this saint and you trust everything he's doing and there's some secret plan, there's, keep your friends close, enemies closer, whatever you think may be going on, he will eventually leave office, even though he toys with this idea of 2028, he will eventually leave office. And so you have to trust that if it's Newsom that comes in or AOC or Peter Thiel's acolyte, J.D. Vance, that they're not going to use it in these negative ways. But ultimately what I see is that baton of tyranny does get passed back and forth. And so let's say, George Bush starts some programs during post 9/11 era, and that includes ignoring the Constitution and just going to war without actual authorization. And then Obama continues that, right? And then Obama expands the drone program and starts saying, well, if there's terrorists anywhere in the world that are a threat to America, we can bomb them. We don't need congressional approval, and screw you with your borders. Where if you have a terrorist in your country, we're going to bomb them. And so they did that in Sudan, they did in Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, etc., Syria. And Trump is now taking that same justification, just as one example, to start bombing these boats off the coast of the Caribbean. We haven't been provided any evidence that these are actually cartel leaders or drug dealers or any of this stuff. They haven't provided anything. They claim they provided to Congress. The point is, Trump is using that same argument that Obama used during the war on terror, but now it's about narco terror. And that's just one example of how that baton of tyranny, it might get started by one party and then passed to the next party and expanded and then passed to the next guy. And it just keeps doing that back and forth. And so each of the parties can blame the other when they're both actually using these tools of tyranny to push the agenda forward. And I think that's what people need to pay more attention to, not get stuck on the personalities, because I do think that there's this sort of thing, whether it's Elon Musk or Donald Trump or anyone else out there, where people, they start to kind of personally identify with the personalities, or at least what they believe the personalities are, and then they become incapable of criticizing that person because, well, an attack on that person is an attack on me. And you have to be able to separate that and step back and say, okay, maybe I do like some of what this person does, but I need to also be objective and unbiased and say, that's not a good move. That's not going to help humanity, and be willing to call that out. Because if you're not willing to call it out, I'm sorry, my friends, but that is the definition of a cult member. And I don't think any of us want to be cult members. We want to stand for humanity. We want to stand for the United States, and stand for freedom and for liberty. At least that's what I do. And I know that's what you do, Seth. So I hope people will check out my series and stay tuned for the coming parts in it.
It's perfect. I couldn't have said it better, man. So I'll just bring it up real quickly again, and I'll make sure these links are in the description. So here's your series on the last American vagabond. Also your website, which I will pull up here, which is the Conscious Resistance Network. I'll put this link in there as well. This is what aside from following you on Twitter, this to me is kind of like your main hub for people that want to follow exactly what you're doing, participate in what you're doing, learn about everything that you're doing. So anyway, Derek, thank you again for coming on. It's been great talking to you. I mean, maybe one day we'll have these conversations of like, wow, look, technocracy is failing, and and humanity's rising in the right ways. But that event won't come without the warnings that we're putting out there today. And I appreciate you being on the front line of sounding that alarm.
Thank you, brother. And I look forward to that day when we're celebrating after the robots have failed and technocracy has fallen.
Yes. Sounds good, man. We'll do a show then. So thank you again for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that interview. I've now got another short, say 25-minute or so interview with my good friend Jeff Adam, and it's going to be all about silver, but not the money silver, the healing silver, and how it's been hidden from us, which you may not know that, but actually silver used to be the #1 prescribed antibiotic until, guess who? Mr. Rockefeller came in, turn of the century, and made sure that wasn't going to be the case, because they found out they could actually sell their patented antibiotics, they couldn't patent silver. And so we saw silver in a lot of ways being wiped clean from the earth, and especially in the Western medical system. But it's actually one of the most potent healing substances on earth. And so Jeff, who's an expert in this, will be kind of walking us through exactly these mechanisms, some of the history, and much more. So please enjoy this short interview with Jeff Adam. Mr. Jeff Adam, it's great to have you back on the show. I always enjoy our discussions. So thanks for giving us your time today.
Well, thank you for having me on. Like you said, we always have such a great time when we talk. It seems like we're talking for 5 minutes, and suddenly it's like, wow, an hour's up.
Exactly. And those are my favorite discussions.
Well, and thank you for just being a friend.
You're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome. I appreciate that. It's important, actually. It's funny because I was just last night, I was on the phone till way later than I wanted to be on the phone, talking to one of my best childhood friends, and we were just reflecting on just the importance of friends, the importance of people, and how I think a lot of people live their lives chasing money and fame and wealth and notoriety, and they get to the end and realize that they've kind of chased off all the people that were close to them. And I hope that I don't have to learn that lesson. So we're trying to orient our lives around just making sure we prioritize relationships and family and friends. So anyway, it's good to have you here as a friend.
Whenever I'm talking to somebody and your name comes up, or they ask what interviews I've done, and I mention you, I always refer to you as a friend. And I started looking at that, and I'm like, it's really amazing, because the people that I'm dealing with, I don't view them as like business partners or promoters. It's like, this person's a friend of mine, because we generally have conversations, and I feel like we generally like who each other is.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the audience can sense that too, because you can sense it. Just you can feel how two people interact, and there's I have a variety of guests on, and there's no enemies I have on, but there's some people that you don't really connect with, and it's okay. It is what it is, but it makes you value the ones that you do. So it's good to have you here. So we're just kind of dive straight into silver, and we've done a lot of shows on silver, and it's much more than just this bar that you kind of bury in the backyard in case the government collapses, which is a big role of what it is for me. But I think that what a lot of people don't understand is how powerful of a healing substance is that silver is, and that a lot of the role of silver. And the role of silver as antibiotic and for healing and everything really got kind of hidden and pushed out of the system when the Rockefellers and the Carnegies came in, turn of the century, and they kind of redid things to create what is our current, our medical industrial complex. But let's just, before we jump into anything specific, just walk us through the role of silver in healing in the body. Because I think it's, for a lot of people, it's a new concept, and you think, okay, well, how is it that this metal, do I swallow it? Like, do I lick it? It's like, how is this metal responsible for all the things that it does in terms of our health?
Well, the big difference is silver is not a heavy metal because it's a mineral. So when you look at like gold, you look at like copper, you look at like zinc, those are minerals and metals at the same time. A mineral being that your body needs it to survive, and your body, it performs a function in the body. So, I mean, 3,000 years ago, the Phoenicians were lining their water vessels with silver so it wouldn't stagnate when they transported it. So there's been a long history of silver throughout. You look at the late 1800s, scientists sterilized their petri dishes by putting silver coins in them so they could sterilize them so they could perform their scientific studies, because it would kill the bacteria, funguses, or viruses. And even before refrigeration, they used to drill holes in silver dollars and put a string in it and drop it into milk because there was no refrigeration. So you had your ice boxes on your front porches. So their iceman would deliver the ice. The milk delivery would come in there, open it up, pull the silver coin out because it's still worth something, stick the milk in there, and you wouldn't have the milk stagnating. Before 1923, silver was the #1 prescribed antibiotic in the world. And then when you mentioned Rockefeller, he tried to patent it to sell it as a medicine. And when he couldn't, a couple of years later, they discovered penicillin. And then they found out the real value of patents, because I created this something I could patent, nobody else can have it. When you can create a narrative where the demand outlays the supply, now you control your profit margins. And that's what they've done. And that's why they've been trying to get silver out of society, saying it does all these, wicked things that it doesn't do. And even when you go to the pharmaceutical websites and you put, colloidal silver in, under their statements that it says no significant studies have been done to verify these statements. So they want to make it sound like something bad. In the meantime, you can have one of their chemicals that has a list, 20 items, 30 items long of side effects that have happened, and they want you to buy that. But what they don't want you to buy, they go, it's this, and we don't have any proof.
Exactly. And so, and also, one of the famous kind of stories, or the ideas that have kind of passed through history, is the idea of being born with a silver spoon in your mouth. And I always thought, when I first learned that, so growing up, I always thought, that means that you're wealthy, right? So you're born and you're being fed with a silver spoon. But walk us through actually the origins of that in the Black Plague, and describe what that was like. That's very fascinating to me.
So the plague was 1348 to 1350. 300 million people died from the plague. And this is what really got me about the pandemic, is they're saying, it's the plague, it's the plague. 13% of the population. Can you imagine if 13% of the population would have died during COVID? I mean, you're talking, a couple billion people, or 1 billion people dying, and it wasn't even close to that. So what happened was they realized that less than 1/4% of the wealthy people were getting sick. And they realized they were eating off of real silverware. So, you scrape the fork against your tooth, you get little pieces come out, ions, you have acid in your mouth, breaks off little subatomic particles. And those people didn't get the plague. So doctors started prescribing people to walk around with silver spoons in your mouth so you don't get the plague. And so instead of meaning you're wealthy, it means does not apply to you. You're not going to get sick from the silver spoon. And actually the tradition of giving silver pacifiers to babies was born during that era too. Get the baby a silver pacifier, now your baby won't die from the plague.
Interesting. It's actually funny because I was, as we were talking about before the show started, I used to have a scrap buying business. I still have like Ziploc bags of scrap silver and, what they call junk silver. And I remember keeping some silverware, and we've got a silver spoon that's sitting up in our, we have our normal kind of, flatware and whatever, but we have a silver spoon that sits in there, and pretty often I'll give it to my girls to use. Now, the problem with it is if they're eating soup or something hot, the silver, it conducts that heat, so the spoon gets really hot. But whenever I can, if they're eating yogurt or something, I'll give them the silver spoon. And of course, we're also giving them other kinds of silver and other things that make them healthy. But it's kind of like a kick to that. So now, but you mentioned colloidal silver, and there's different kinds of silver. Colloidal silver. I think there's like atomic silver. You've got micronic silver. So not all silver is created equal, as far as I understand. So walk us through like what is colloidal silver, which is very common for a lot of people. They've heard of colloidal silver, but then walk us into like what is micronic silver, and what are the differences between those?
Well, it starts with the production of the product. So colloidal, ionic, and nano silver, those are the three main types. Now, there's people that say I have some subatomic silver, I've got monatomic silver. They're just fancy names for colloidal silver. So they're all made the same. There's two electrodes in water and you have alternating current. So colloidal silver's here, a shallow arc, that's a particle. Then you have ionic silver, which is a deeper arc. And then you have nano silver, which is an even deeper arc. The deeper the arc, the smaller the particle or molecule. So colloidal is a particle. I mean, a little piece of silver is coming off. When they talk about building up in your system or quote, the people turning blue from silver, that was because it was a particle that was too big to get washed out through the lymphatic and waste system. Your body kind of views silver as almost like a vitamin C. I'm sorry, it takes what it can get and then it expels what is not left or what it doesn't use. When you have ionic silver, it's a subatomic molecule. So it's an ion, not a particle. So it's dispersed more wholly through the body. And it works kind of the same, but a little bit different. So they all kind of work the same. And that puts you to nano silver, which is the deepest arc. That is a subatomic molecule with a higher blade surface, it's called. So its function is a little bit different. My experience, colloidal silver is you don't want to do over 10 parts per million. They create biofilms and bigger structures that your body doesn't assimilate well, can become toxic. It's harder for your body to get rid of. Ionic silver is really good in the body. It's disrupt the chemical lung of the single cell organism in a type of suffocation, hits it with ionic charge, killing the bacteria, fungus, or virus. Now it's trapped in that cell and gets washed out the lymphatic and waste system. And they all perform sort of that function. The nano silvers change with current, static electricity, and it's very volatile that way. So you should never do nano mineral metal in your body because it's changed with current. And when you're sick, your body's acidic, so they can flip polarity and become toxic in the body. So on the skin, it's fine. You just don't want to put it in the body. So when I created micronic silver, we created a product that is stable in the body so you don't have that problem. All other silvers stay suspended in the body for 6 to 8 minutes, precipitate down and get washed out through the lymphatic and waste system. They're sublingual delivery only, meaning absorbed under the tongue. So when you swallow them, they hit the stomach acid, create silver chloride because it's reactive. Now it's dead and gets washed out through the lymphatic and waste system. The micronic silver is stable, so it's a sublingual and an ingested delivery. It's not destroyed by stomach acid, so it's dual mode delivery. And the micronic silver stays active in the body for 8 to 10 hours instead of 6 to 8 minutes. So you don't have to take as much, consider it a concentrate, if you will. The best way to explain it is the colloidal, ionic, and nano silver is kind of like fishing. You put the worm on the hook, you cast it out there, you catch the fish, you rebait the hook. With the micronic silver, it's like throwing a net out there and just taking in all the fish, fishing all day long. So it's just much more effective and less reactive. It is geared towards function and immunity, helps build the immune system. So it gets your immune system to work in the way that God intended it to. So it's just a more efficient, less reactive way of, helping the body rebuild itself.
So basically in these different variations of silver, they are different methods that have been used to put silver particles into water or a topical spray or something that you can actually, basically it acts as a carrier to bring silver into the body, but the different types of silver particles created in that process have different functions and different kind of like shelf lives in the body, right? In terms of how long they last in there. And so did you invent a new process? Like micronic silver, is that a whole new kind of technology that was invented to create a different type of silver that comes into your body?
Yeah, I'm going to say not invented. I'm going to say God gave it to us because I'm not smart enough to have it. I'll be honest with you on that. Ours is a 3-step process. It's not just 2 electrodes in water. So one of the things that really concerned me when I first started learning about silver and making it is the instability issue with how it only lasts for a couple seconds in the body. It's nondescript in its function. So the colloidal, ionic, and nano silver kill all single cell organisms, bacteria, fungus, and viruses in the body, even the good ones. So usually after those, and because they're active for 6 to 8 minutes, you usually have to take it quite a bit. So as a therapeutic, if you're sick, because it stays in the body active 6 to 8 minutes, really you should take it every half an hour, every hour, and you're putting high amounts into it. With the mycronic silver being stable, it's not it stays active in the body, so you don't have to take it all the time. So to give you an idea, like another company's colloidal ionic or nano silver, an 8-ounce bottle as a therapeutic is going to be like 5 to 6 days or 7 days, where the 8-ounce bottle of the mycronic silver is a 48-day supply because you only take it once a day. You don't take it every hour on the hour because it stays active in the body. The main benefit for me is that it's not destroying the good bacteria. And the reason being is the mycronic silver is exocellular, where the other ones are intercellular. The other silvers have to be absorbed into the cell, where they disrupt the chemical lung of the single cell organism in a suffocation. They hit it with an ionic charge, killing it. Now it's dead inside that cell, gets washed out through the lymphatic and waste system. With the mycronic silver, when it comes in contact with your bacteria, fungus, or virus, the micron is a subatomic particle with a very high atomic mass. It comes in contact, it steals the electron, rupturing the cell wall, killing that on contact. Now the micron takes in the electron, which it cannot hang on to because a micron is a form of an ion, which means missing electrons or can't hold electrons. It ejects the electrons into the nearest thing, which is a blood cell, giving you energy. And now ours is active and goes after the next bacteria, fungus, or virus for 8 to 10 hours instead of 6 to 8 minutes.
Okay. That makes sense in my elementary way of understanding it. So walk on, I know that you've got a whole line of products, and actually I use most of your products. I like the nasal spray is like probably my favorite one, because it's just like if I'm kind of cloudy, it's like kind of like licking a car battery, like in the right way. It just kind of like really gets me going. But walk us through some of your kind of main products and what they do and what response you're seeing from people that are using these products.
Yeah. So one of the things we did is we put a kit together of our main products called our Silver Bullet Kit. And that one's got the mycronic silver, which is our flagship product, the dietary supplement. That's a 27 parts per million. You take basically a teaspoon a day. You can take it as a preventative, or you can take it if you're feeling sick. We literally have customers of ours that have gotten food poisoning, take 2 teaspoons of the dietary supplement, and in 4 minutes, the diarrhea, throwing up, stomach pain stops. It helps reduce inflammation in the body. It really gets your immune system functioning the way that it should. So that one is like your everyday, your run of the mill, let's use this for everything kind of product. And then we put that into the mycronic nasal spray. So it's really the same formula, just in a nasal sprayer, because viruses incubate in the nasal passages. So your first line of defense from getting colds and flus and stuff like that is to spray the mycronic silver nasal spray right in your nasal passages. And that's where it's going to be most effective, so you don't get sick. And when you're going to be dealing with the crowds of people, it's great to just put a blast in each nostril, and then you kind of don't worry about getting sick. During the pandemic, when they were doing the nasal swabs at airports, it got out about the mycronic silver nasal spray, and we had just massive amount of people that were using this when they got their nasal swab, like 5 minutes before, they would spray the mycronic silver in their nasal passages. And we hadn't had one person get back to us and say they tested positive and they were able to take their flight. So they were using it as a cheat code. From there, we went on to the mycronic topical healing, and not unlike other companies that take the dietary supplement and they put nasals or a topical spray on it. And they say, this is our topical one. We actually make our topical one twice as strong as our dietary supplement, because you're going to have an amount of evaporation versus penetration into the skin that we made it stronger, so it works better. That one can be sprayed in the eyes. Actually, anywhere on the body, you can use that one. I have allergies, so when my eyes itch, I just spray it right in my eyes, and basically on contact, the itching goes away, the burning goes away. And I actually use that for, our customers use that for like shingles. Which is hugely painful. We found that when you take the dietary supplement internally, you spray the topical spray topically, you're actually sandwiching the virus in between a layer where then the body can destroy it. And the pain seems to go away almost immediately. And from there, with the technology, with how we make the product, the 3-step process that we have is, again, not just 2 electrodes in water. We restructure the water, like changing the hydrogen bond angles. And then we take the ion apart, putting it back together in a different formulation, creating ozone in itself. So because we really became, I think, one of the leaders in ozone technology, we actually created the Leozone product, which is the little jar on your left with the orange label. That is 100% ozone trapped in an Alearopa oil. and it is magnificent on pain relief on soft tissue. I mean, pulled muscles, even broken bones where there's swelling, it reduces the inflammation, taking pressure off the nerve, and the pain goes away. We have dentists that use that when they pull a tooth out, they pack that in the vacated cavity, and never get dry socket. The pain goes away. They use the dietary supplement for healing also. So it's, it's really good for oral applications, sore muscles. Actually, we've had a lot of vendors that do shows where their feet will get tired or get sore. They'll put that on their feet if it's a 2 or 3 day show, and they said they don't have the fatigue. Chiropractors are using it when they do their adjustments. Their patients are saying that not only was adjustment better, they're holding longer. We have massage therapists that use it, and their hands aren't sore at the end of the day from giving all the massages. So that's a really good topical product to use. It also works on bee stings, bug bites, burns, takes the heat out of sunburn. So there's a lot of applications for our products together. And then we created the Silvazone product from there, where we took the Leozone and we took the dietary supplement and we put those into a skin cream called Silvazone. So it's got the benefits of the silver and the ozone together. And that's on a nice spreadable, low melting point skin moisturizer that goes down to the subcutaneous level of your skin immediately and hydrates up over the next 10 hours, reducing arthritis and joint pain on contact while it softens the skin. And so we put these in a packet together to make it a little bit more affordable, and so people can try the products. And the Silver Bullet Kit is one of our best sellers.
And I'll say too that these are things that we use. I'm really very cautious about vetting any product being discussed on the show to say, okay, is this good? Is this something I'd give my own kids? And the nasal spray, so the nasal spray we use all the time. My wife, who she has lung issues occasionally, like sometimes she can't stop coughing. Not as much recently. She last year or two, and I've noticed even the nasal spray will pull her right out of a coughing fit. Whereas whether she's taking some sort of manuka honey or eucalyptus, it doesn't really do much to help, but that nasal spray instantly does that. I've also found that if I'm blocked up, like if I have, kind of my sinuses are kind of, just jammed up, again, that nasal spray, it just is it's like instant clear. Now it's intense though. I mean, my eyes are going to water because I think it has rosemary and some other things in there, if I'm not mistaken. Which is that correct? It does have rosemary, right?
No, this one is just the Mycronic Silver. We have the other one called the Sonic Mist.
Okay.
That one is the silver ozone hemp and CBD with rosemary and eucalyptus in it. And that's the one for the long time sinus sufferers. That one will open you up in seconds.
Okay. And so, but then the skincare though is also great for, again, wasps, or, bug bites, stings, sunburns. And even you have an experience too, didn't you? If I remember correctly, you burned your hand really bad. Can you tell us that story really quickly? Because that really highlights one of the best instances of how silver affects things.
Yeah, so I had an elderly gentleman. His wife would take the dietary supplement for her Parkinson's. It would help with her tremors and the body pain because it will work on bone and joint pain at the cellular level in the body. And I was dropping it off at his house, and he was cooking, and he had a bottle of olive oil too close to the stove. And while we were sitting in his living room, I heard a pow and a whoosh, and I turn around, the whole wall's glowing orange. I run into the kitchen, and flames were shooting out of the olive oil. His bottom of his cabinets had already started on fire. I mean, it was really starting to spread. So I realized that it was an apartment building, and it was all carpeted. There was no windows over that part of the apartment. And if that bottle exploded, he probably wouldn't get his wife, who was bedridden, out of the house. and he was like 80 years old, so I don't know if he would have made it either. So when I went into the kitchen, there was a towel laying there. I put the sink on, I put the towel in there, took it out so it was soaking wet. And I went over to the stove. I rolled up my sleeve. I grabbed the bottle and took it over to the stove. It spilled over my hand and caught my hand on fire. And it was probably roughly around 300 degrees temperature on that bottle. And immediately I tossed it in the sink. Put my hand, the towel around my hand, the wet towel, and put it, the second towel that was there, I put over the product in the sink to stop the oxygen so the fire went out. And then I put out the fire in the cabinets, and my hand was second and third degree burns, boiled it down to the muscle. I asked the gentleman if he had a 1 quart, Ziploc bag. And I took that bottle of dietary supplement I was given for his wife. I dumped it in the bag and stuck my hand in there, and immediately I had no pain. And so I just taped it around my wrist because it was quite painful. And I knew there was a lot of damage done there. So the fire department got there, the paramedics looked at it and they're like, yeah, we're going to call an ambulance. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'll drive myself to the hospital. And they're like, no, you're in shock. I'm like, I'm not in shock. They're like, yeah, no, that's really bad. You just don't understand. So I took the tape off and pulled my hand out and I said, okay, I'm not in any pain. I said, took my hand out. In about 10 seconds, I mean, it felt like my hand was on fire again. It was like, yeah, now it's really burning. So I'm not in shock. And then I stuck it back in there, taped it off. And I ended up driving myself to the hospital. And the doctor right away, he looked at my hand. Now it's all swollen. It's got all the fluid in there protecting it. And the doctor goes, well, first thing we're going to do is drain that. And I look at him, I go, are you dumb or stupid? Something to that effect. I said, that's all antiseptic in there. Why would you cut it open? He said, well, we have to drain it so you don't get an infection. I'm like, we're at the one place in the world where there's more infections than anything, where people go to the hospital to get sick, and you want to expose it to that bad air. I'm like, no, just wrap it up and I'll go home. And they use he said, okay, so they put some cream on it, which was Silverdene cream, which the hospitals use. That was invented by Dr. John Richardson. That's John from RNC. His dad invented that cream in 1967, and the hospital still use it today because it's got silver in it. So he put that on it, and I explained, that the product my hand was in was like, micronic silver, about 2,000 times more effective. So I went home and I just treated it every day, and they literally said they would have to amputate my fingers. It was so bad. I mean, it just boiled it right down. I mean, the skin really just boiled right off my hand. And it healed it it was 25 days. I had no pain, no scarring the whole time. Every day I would just soak it in there for a couple minutes. I would put that Aleozone salve that I showed you that we have as part of our kit on there and bandage it up. And the Aleozone kept it moist, stopped the inflammation, it took the heat out of it almost immediately when I put that on there. And that became our wound care protocol that they're using in some elderly homes for bed sores and stuff like that, where you take the dietary supplement internally, you do a topical healing spray on it, and then while that's still wet, you put the Leozone over it to keep the silver suspended. And we're seeing, cuts down to tendons, like an elderly woman who had a skin tear down to her tendons, 21 days at the hospital. They couldn't get it to close up. They can't do stitches because the skin's too thin. They do our protocol in 14 days, completely healed without a sign of a scar. And so that's become our wound care protocol. What's nice about it is silver is so, flexible in what it does. There's many, many things it works on. So it's not like a pharmaceutical where it was designed to do this one thing. And after that, it sits in your cabinet for, 5 years until you realize the bottle's expired right when you need it the most. And nobody ever finishes their prescriptions. They take it till they feel better and they go, I'm going to save this for later. The silver has 10-year shelf life, and it works on many different things.
It's pretty incredible stuff. And we haven't had that level of experience, but I can say just from my own experience of burning myself or, bumping a hot cast iron pan, that it's the same experience. It's just like, it instantly, it goes from burning to just like, oh, what happened there? So
yeah, if you touch it, it'll hurt. But if you leave it alone,
yes.
It's like nothing.
Exactly.
And it doesn't blister. It doesn't even blister, so you don't have any scar or anything.
Exactly. So I'll go back to your website. We've got a link set up. It's just sethsilver.net. And I'll make sure the link is in the description. There's a promo code Seth. You get a discount on there. So this is the Silver Bullet kit right here. On the shop, you've got a bunch of other products. You've got some mouthwash and some those are new products, which we'll probably do a separate show on those. You can get the individual products here. So if people want to just get the Silvazone for the cream or the nasal spray. The other spray I was talking about was the Sonic Mist. This is the one that we also use as well. This is the Sonic Mist. You have them all there. But then if you go down, this is the Silver Bullet kit, right? So they save. It's kind of like your complete medicine cabinet right there. And so again, that's sethsilver.net, promo code Seth. You save you some money on that.
And if you want to go back to the Arcanum a minute.
Yeah, sure.
I want to tell people about this because it doesn't get enough attention. So the Arcanum 1200 has been working better than morphine for pain management with people. It's actually the micronic silver with ozone, hemp, and CBD in it, from a Delta 8, not a Delta 9. It doesn't make you feel high. But we were at the autism conference, and there was people there that children had seizures, and this actually stopped their seizures.
Incredible.
So, and again, everything we have is all natural, 100% organic, no synthetics in it. So the one thing that people don't understand when you're looking at a pharmaceutical, they put synthetics in it, which is not natural in the body. So right away, your body is going to attack it. So they put every single drug has an immunosuppressor in it to suppress your immune system, so it doesn't attack the thing that they gave you to help with the condition that you have. Now that doesn't make sense to me. I mean, if I'm going east to Chicago, I don't go west to turn around and go back east. And this is what we deal with big pharma with is everything that they do is geared towards profit. Yes, we need to make a living. The money revolves around people making a living. We want to make a living, but our goal is to help people first and foremost. If I put myself out of business by people using our product, we have such a healthier society. God's blessed me immensely. He's gonna bless me in other ways. So we do pray over and bless our products. We believe it's the power of His word that's in it. But we have a lot of loyal customers like yourself. We don't let anybody talk about our product unless they use it, so that way they can share their experiences with it. And we have an 89% customer reorder rate, so we know our products work very, very well. We do have people that answer the phones, usually me. So if there's questions, if there's something our product does, we will tell you a product. We will, like for circulatory problem, issues, the Cardio Miracle, or like the RNC with the apricot seeds. So we want to help. Our goal is to help people get better. Our goal is not profits.
Which is important, especially these days. So, Jeff, thank you again for your time. Again, reminder, I'll put all the links in the description, and I look forward to next time. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you. God bless you. And thank you for being a friend.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you too.
All right. Bye-bye.